I'm Danielle French. I've met many of you so far. Thanks for coming up and introducing yourselves. We're going to go ahead and get started with the complex conversations, and that's going to be facilitated by 4 other team leaders. The complex conversations video monologues are thought-provoking professional ethics case studies for teaching assistants, so you, to consider and discuss. These are complex in the sense that they pose multi-layered ethical dilemmas with no easy answers, and they are meant to foster conversations that might otherwise be avoided. These 4 monologues we'll discuss today address a wide range of topics. First, we'll be considering differences of a linguistic nature in relation to teaching with Anuj. Second, we'll be responding to students who appear to be overwhelmed or at risk with Maya, over there. Third, we'll be accommodating students with various learning and psychological difference with Tanisha. Where's Tanisha? There she is. And then fourth is accommodating students with various religions with Julian in the back. Okay. The videos themselves do not offer sample responses to these topics. However, the accompanying resource packet that's available online offers a list of possible ways to handle each situation, recommendations and resources that you can provide to students and colleagues, advice for what not to do, and questions to prompt further discussion. We'd like to emphasize that the situations discussed in each video are fictionalized accounts, and that the people providing the monologues are actors. These accounts may utilize and/or require the examination of stereotypes in order to engage you in meaningful, if difficult, conversations. While these scenarios may seem exaggerated, they are purposefully provocative in order to call attention to ethical professional practices and broader campus policies and procedures. While general principles are worth exploring and campus policies are certainly worth knowing, we believe it's important to remember that the complexities that inform any real-world situation often deserve to take precedent and may require actions beyond what is presented today. To get started, we will watch one of 4 videos. Next, each table will have time to discuss each situation as a small group. Then we will open up to large group discussion facilitated by one of the 4 team leaders. Please do not be shy in sharing your opinions, and feel free to get the attention of one of the team leaders with microphones. We have 2 additional ones. We have Kristen over here, and then over there. Is that you, Samyak? Yes. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started.
You are a non-native English-speaking teaching assistant for a statistics course, and one of your students approaches you after class with a concern.
Hi, do you have a minute? I wanted to talk to you about some issues I'm having in your class. I'm always there and I try really hard, but it seems like no matter what I do, I just can't keep up and I'm getting bad grades. I haven't come to your office hours before to talk to you about this because I don't really know how to say this. I think I'm not doing well because, I'm sorry, but I don't understand you. No offense, but your accent makes it really hard for me to follow. I always read and come to class prepared, but I'm getting tired of not doing well, despite everything I do for this class. I appreciate you offering to help me during your office hours, but I shouldn't have to put in all the extra effort to understand what my teacher's saying. I already spend a lot of time on this class, much more than any of my other classes I'm taking. You know, my parents pay for me to go to college and expect me to get good grades, but then I get teachers like you who can't even speak English. How am I supposed to do well? Stats is hard enough as is.
Good morning. Hello? Anyway, good morning, guys, and namaste. My name is Anuj, and I'll be facilitating through the first video that you just watched. Let me preface this scenario by saying, as a non-native English speaker myself, this is a concern I have at the beginning of every semester, whether I'm TAing or whether I'm an instructor and so on. So the first thing we want you to do in your table is to try to put yourself in the shoes of the TA that you are, right? And how would you respond to the situation? Take like 5 minutes and we'll get back to you with the responses. All right, guys, let's bring it back, please. All right, let's bring it back, guys. It's great to see all the conversations going on, right? So now we have a scenario where you have a student. So you have a scenario where you have a student telling you, I cannot understand your accent, right? stats is hard as it is, right? So as a TA, what are some of the responses you would have to the situation? Anyone?
Don't be shy.
Maya?
You can perhaps take notes on what you were going to say in the class and then offer those online.
Okay, so you're going
Or-
to take notes to what they're saying? Okay.
Yeah, or like a PowerPoint.
Okay. Any other responses to the situation? Hold on.
I suppose perhaps the teacher who is trying to communicate and finding a student unable to understand what they're saying could also, in the one-on-one conversation, open up and ask that, like particularly what areas are they not understanding? Because sometimes there can be a bit of confusion as to, are you not understanding the material, which could be quite complicated, or is it actually my vowels and my S's and my T's,
Okay.
you know? And if it is something that is speech-oriented, a person like that could maybe take some simple tutelage in how to speak a little more clearly and a little more precisely. It's just an activity or an exercise that they could take on as a side project.
Okay, so you're saying it could be a case of accent or the content, right? Because it's stat. It's
Yeah,
difficult to learn.
But I
right?
wouldn't just assume it's just the accent.
Yeah, right. Very good. Sir, there.
I'll involve,
You need to bring it really close.
okay. I'll involve some body language to help them understand,
Okay.
and especially if it's practical thing.
Very good points. Anybody else? Oh, I think these are very, very important points. Let me put a follow-up question to it, right? In the video, they also said they came to you at the end of the semester, right? Oh my God, this is the finals. I don't understand your accent, so on. So what if they had approached you beginning of the semester or the middle of the semester, right? Would your response be different, easier, better? Anyone? Right, because there's a contention that this might not be an accent issue at all, right? Because if you do have a problem with an accent, you could. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We were thinking if they come at the beginning, firstly,
Yeah.
you can set up a plan for them, right? So you can give them supplemental written material to help out. But additionally, I think that if you can break into small peer, groups, that will be helpful too. So they're not just out on their own, but that they've got the support of other students in the class who may not have any trouble understanding. So, but I think if they come to you early enough, you can set up a plan of study for them so that they're not left behind.
Yeah. So that's a very good point. And as a TA, you do have certain resources that is important to be aware of. For example, we have a math tutorial in library as well as Academic Success Center. These are the resources that you could refer to these students. Personally, there have been times I've had spent extra time with the students. Sometimes that intimate setting or intimate connection with the student, sitting one-on-one, helping them stats, does help, right? And again, the time factor here is a little tricky. What I like to do generally is preempt this problem. I usually put it in the syllabus, or I declare that at the beginning of the semester, right? So yeah, I am a non-native English speaker. There might be times when I speak really fast. My enunciation might not be very up to the mark. So please come and see me beginning of semester, right, rather than later. Now, one scenario here that I like to throw out is that, so what if the situation was flipped? Let's say you are an American TA, right? And an international student or non-native English speaker comes to you and says, I'm having a hard time understanding you. Does that change the dynamic here? Anyone?
Hello, can you hear me? All right, there we go. It absolutely changes the dynamic, in my opinion. I taught in Ukraine and in a Soviet republic before, and that was what I would do right off the bat, like you said, was introduce myself as a native English speaker. It was an English-oriented class, but let them know that I can slow down, because we have a tendency to talk really fast as really fast Americans that think that we have to be fast-paced all the time. So just let yourself know that you have a bias too to speak English very quickly, and not everybody speaks it as fast or as fluently as you do.
Anybody else?
I would actually probably direct them to a number of the different ESL resources on campus. So like the ESL Center, for example, you could encourage them to bring, say, the notes from class, like English notes from class, to them and have them help, or get help explaining it.
Okay.
You could, I think the Writing Center would also be able to help with that as well.
Yes. Bring it really close to you.
Does the university offer like translators for like exchange students who maybe don't necessarily?
For American students or for the foreign students? No, the foreign students are usually, if they're not up to speed with the language, they're first required to take ESL classes, and when their English is satisfactory, then they can move on and take other classes. Yeah, but we have someone.
We have a point here.
Okay. One and last one. Yeah.
I would, before referring a student to ESL services, I would first ask, is it me, or are you having trouble understanding your other instructors? So don't, because someone has the accent, don't make the assumption that the problem is English language skills. So ask that question first.
You know, I think a lot of the same things do apply. Make sure that they know that they can come to you about it. Make sure that they know that they can ask you to slow down or repeat things. And also, I think somebody also mentioned written materials, but making those sorts of things available, because sometimes it is easier to be able to go over something in a language you're not familiar with if you can look at it and see what you're supposed to be understanding, instead of having to listen and get it right then.
All right, I think we have a variety of responses here, a lot of good responses. As a TA and instructor myself, what I would say is, again, it is in your benefit if you can preempt the situation ahead of time, beginning of semester rather than at the end of semester. Be aware of all the resources that you have at your disposal. And I would say one thing not to do in this case would be defensive, right? Whether you're an American student or an international student, try to take it in a professional manner. And there's always there are always resources and people who can help you out, resolve this issue. I think we're good on time, so I'm gonna pass the baton, so to speak, to Maya, or the next video. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Anuj. Hold on one second, I want to introduce myself first. So my name is Maya, everybody. I met some of you yesterday, Paul, Mario, so nobody raises their hand, I'm gonna put you into the spot. So you are the unlucky ones, okay? So I'm from Turkmenistan, and I have faced the same situation actually when I taught the class. So as Anuj said, making sure that you have the PowerPoint slides, or perhaps spending a little bit more time with your office hours is a great idea. You do have to understand the student, of course, but if they come at the end of the semester, you kind of have to look at your own discretion. I mean, you decide what is the situation is, because you understand the student, what the personality is like, so I think Anuj did a good job. Okay, so now we're going to discuss about an overwhelmed undergraduate student.
You are a teaching assistant teaching College Writing 1. You are concerned about one of your students' progress.
In this week's journal entry, Angela wrote how frustrated she was and that she wanted to quit school. I know I've seen her looking tired recently, and she's been late to class. She seems reserved, and she rarely participates. Is it the challenges of adjusting to college life, which is normal, or is it her job? She has told me she works late nights. Her journal entries show some family and personal issues. She says she's the first one in her family to go to college and that her parents weren't willing to provide their income information for financial aid. I've tried to reach out to her, especially through her work, which is really just okay at this point. I mean, the rough draft of her research paper was terrible. She seems to have trouble with sentence structures, and her outline is a mess. And then, the note she put at the end of her draft saying that she didn't know what a reference page was. I recommended that she visit the Writing Commons, but she said she was too busy. I feel bad and I'm concerned, but how much do I try to get involved? Is it within my responsibilities to reach out to her beyond issues of her academic work?
All right, so you, again, can you please raise your hand if you're going to teach this fall semester? Teach? Oh, wow, awesome. So what about the research assistants? Yay, all right, a lot of teachers. So let's take a couple minutes as a teaching assistant. What are you going to do with this scenario? How would you solve this problem? Let's take a couple minutes. All right, let's open, hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Ros. Let's open it up now. This is an amazing, very complex situation. So as a TA, what would you do? Majority of us here are TA, so you may face it this semester. What are you going to do? Please raise your hand. Yay! Over there, and you're going to talk next. Paul's going to talk next. And Mario, then you're next.
I think the main concept in education is teacher-student relationship that focus not only in academic aspect but also in social aspect. So basically understanding her situation, talking with her, and I don't think so the teacher will be able to help her directly, but they can give her indication where she can get help from the psychological or from the financial aid. So just to give her an opening window to reach for a solution to her problem.
Oh, that is an amazing point. Psychological services she mentioned, and what did you say? Financial aid. If you guys remember, she's the first generation student. So she's paying her tuition out of her own pocket. She's working too many hours. So financial aid is a very good resource to go to. And also she mentioned about understanding. Understanding is great, but assuring the student and letting the student know that you understand. Not just I understand and sit back, but you let the student know, I understand your situation, now let's figure it out how to solve the problem. Right? Thank you so much. Okay? Oh, sorry, go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah. We can see if any opportunities for scholarships available.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if you have here something like student support group when they can see if they can find other people who are dealing with the same thing, maybe graduate and undergraduates, so they can offer advice and go from there.
Wonderful. So for student support group, number one place would be what? At Kent State? Academic Success Center. Yes? They have a lot of tutoring classes and support groups like that. Thank you. Please.
We recognize, too, it is a multifaceted problem. There could be emotional issues, financial issues. A tendency of somebody maybe new to this field is to fall into an advice-giving mode and just start unloading advice. We felt that it would be wise to staff this with the professor that's overseeing our work first before we launch into any kind of activity and get some supervision on the topic.
Yes, I agree with that as well. Yes, and her writing is very bad, so you want to advise with your advisor and say, what do I do with this? Her writing is bad, and she says she doesn't have time to go to the writing commons. So what do you do? Anyone else?
Do you guys have
No one else? Okay, please.
So regarding the issue with work, I think I would also suggest to the student that they could go to the Kent Job Board and Career Services and perhaps find a more flexible job that would allow her to focus more on her studies.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and focus and financial aid as well. Perhaps they could remove some of the load of the courses if she's working elsewhere. Anyone knows the what is it called? Online Writing Lab by Purdue University. Can you raise your hand? Yay! This is a really, really good resource for a student if they don't know if they have issues with writing. So you can also refer them to that website. I actually learned my APA from that website, so that's another good resource. So my next question is actually a little different. So what if the student is not first-generation student who is paying her tuition out of her own pocket? If the student, the finances are okay, but she's still tired, doesn't have time to go to writing commons, what would you do in that? Would your response defer? and I see a hand over there too. Go ahead.
Thanks, I'm going to speak again here. I had this exact same experience in my undergrad times. I got a job working a third trick at an assembly plant making cars, and I was a very, very difficult time, and falling behind freshman and sophomore year, I almost was kicked out. Mm-hmm. And I went to a guidance counselor who broke it all down and ended up finding that I didn't need to make that much money. Mm-hmm. And by even just delivering pizzas at night, I was able to sort it out. And having that kind of guidance was helpful, and then everything started to work.
That is a great example. Thank you so much. What's your name? Mavis. What?
Mavis.
Mavis? I'm sorry, I didn't. Yeah, so anyway, thank you so much for that story. And yes, 1 second. So your story actually showcases that teaching the student how to manage their time, you know, with work, social life, career, which career path they're planning to take, and the courses they're taking. They need a really good guidance. And when you're a freshman, you just right after high school, how much experience do you think the student has? So the next person, please. Thank you.
Sorry. I don't really think it makes a difference whether they're first generation college students or not. As a teacher, it's still your responsibility to provide them with the best information you can to help them.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, thank you for wonderful comments. You guys recommended, oh, sorry, go ahead. The last one.
I'll be quick, don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really easy to fall into the trap if finances are fine, if the student looks very secure on the outside. It's really easy to say, oh, they're just not trying hard enough, or oh, they're lazy, and I don't want to put time into this student because they clearly aren't putting time into my work. But there could be psychological issues in play. The student might have difficulty coming to professors for anxiety reasons. They might be going through difficulties in other parts of their life that have nothing to do with their finances that are impacting their ability to either go to things due to time constraints or psychological or social constraints. And if it's a student you're comfortable with or who you think would be comfortable with you, it might be worth trying to have that conversation so you can divine what the problem might be and then seek out the appropriate specialist for that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you very much. So in order to sum it up very quickly, first of all, we want to make sure we evaluate and analyze the situation correctly. So we really, truly understand what is the problem here. And thank you very much for suggesting talk to your advisor first if you don't have an experience with this type of issues. And the resources that you guys recommended, psychological services, we have it at Kent State. Writing Commons, we have it at Kent State. Walk-ins, and they make appointments. We have OWL, which is online writing lab, and other labs and other universities are available on websites, and financial aid office. And all the staff are amazing. Services are great, so we just have to make a call or write an email. Thank you so much, and I will pass the mic to Tanisha.
Yes, thank you. Perfect segue. Can you hear me? No? Okay. Perfect segue into psychological issues, which is going to be our next scenario. So let's have a few minutes just to watch the video, and then we'll get into some discussion.
You are a teaching assistant with both research and teaching responsibilities, so you have a great deal of interaction with your students. You enjoy your position and find that students love your teaching style and open-door policy.
Amanda is a pre-med student in my Chemistry 2 class. In our class together last semester, she had a vibrant, outgoing personality. Amanda never missed a class and proved to be an exceptional student. She was early, sat in the front row, participated often, and consistently submitted high-quality work. Now, Amanda is always late, taking a seat in the back, never participating, and she just looks sad. She cries when she provides excuses for not submitting assignments or submitting poor quality work. Yesterday, she approached my desk to turn in her take-home exam, which was due last week. I couldn't help but notice the deep, straight-lined incisions on her arms. I think she might be cutting herself. Do I get involved, Or should I just ignore all these signs that Amanda is obviously in need of help?
All right, so you guys have Amanda. She's your student. It's a student that you have had in the past, so you're noticing some changes with her. How would you guys handle this as a teaching assistant? There are so many things that were mentioned in the video, so I'm going to give you guys just a few minutes, 5 minutes or so, just to discuss that at your table. So 5 minutes. All right, guys, so we're going to bring it back to the large group discussion. All right, so just a quick reminder, you guys have this student that has been in several of your classes. She's now in your class now, and she is going through some different issues. You're noticing some changes with her, and one specific change is that you're noticing some cuts on her arm. So how would you guys handle this situation? What were some things discussed at your tables? Right here in the back.
I would try to talk to her, ask her if everything is okay, but I would try to first point out that my question comes because I have seen the difference between her behavior in last class and in this class, so that I won't go straight forward, to point out that I have seen cuts in your arm or things like that. Just ask her, because I don't want to be invasive, but I still want to show her that I'm worried about her, and because she's if the change has been that dramatic, I'm sure that something is going on, and let her know that if she wants to come to me, she can't do it, and wait for her response so that I can also point out other resources as psychological services or things like that. But even though I would also tell her that if there's something really, really, really wrong, going on, that she could go to someone, not maybe a family member, a friend, or someone, so that she doesn't keep the problem to herself, but she brings it up. And I would also do it right away, so that I don't have to wait until the end of the semester when things may have gotten really, really bad, and maybe she doesn't want to go for help anymore.
Sure. So just one of the key points that you pointed out was actually making known to the student what you're seeing. So pointing out some of those observations, maybe not necessarily going straight to those cuts on her arms, but just pointing out some of the changes that you're noticing. So thank you. All right, right over here.
I would go and talk to a supervisor above me or somebody because this may go beyond the scope of what I can do as a TA. And so I would look for resources that I could, I would definitely say something to somebody above me and just look for resources that either they could reach out to her, I could reach out to her, or somebody.
Sure, great point there. One of the main things that we want to stress with this scenario is that you don't want to counsel the student, right? So unless that's your specialty, that's your field, you have your counseling degree and your license, you still don't want to go and cross that boundary line. So making sure you find those resources for your student. So we have one more at this table, and then I know I saw another.
I want to echo what my table mate said. Another important thing about sharing this with a supervisor, I am a licensed counselor. I can diagnose these things. Well, in my role as a TA, I would not engage in any kind of diagnostics, but I would use my natural gut. And having worked with folks who self-harm, generally if the sleeve is up and you can see the marks, they're allowing you to see it, and it is a message. And if we were not to supervise with somebody over our heads, if something unfortunate would happen to that person, a case could be made that we were keeping it to ourselves, perhaps trying to operate outside of the scope of our practice. Absolutely, it must be shared up, not only from a compassion standpoint, but from a liability standpoint as well.
Yes, thank you, sir. You made some really, really great points. And I want to stress with that as well, you can actually help in supporting your student by actually calling psychological services or the counseling center just to get a better idea of how you might handle a situation like this. You can't make an appointment for the student. That has to be on their end for confidentiality reasons, but you can absolutely walk students over to the counseling center. You can walk them over to psych services so that they can feel supported in doing that, because it can be a tough situation, especially starting out when you're seeing a counselor for the first time. So That is one of the main things with this scenario. Any other thoughts right here?
I would, in addition to that, try to find some support on campus with other students that may be going through similar things, so that they not just have adults talking at them, but also other people that have gone through it and how they came out of it. I think it's To Write Love on Our Arms, I think, is a group they have on campus.
Okay.
So that
Thank you. And also the Women's Center is a good resource. If the student coming to you, in this case was a woman, they have a lot of support services there. I'll pose one more question to you guys, and I guess it's a little bit different. So what if the student's friend were coming to you? So a student coming to you and says, my friend is going through some changes. I'm noticing some cuts on their arms. Would your response be any different? No? Okay, similar? Yeah, sure. Yes.
Okay. Well, then the friend's story is hearsay. I really can't act upon it or confront the student or challenge the student. But at that point, I would encourage the friend to maybe do some of the things that I would have been thinking about doing, but I wouldn't directly go to the student unless I had observed something myself. That's my take today.
Okay, thank you. We had another thought, maybe? Okay, over here.
Maybe make them aware of resources that are available to them or to the student who they're friends with that's having problems, just so that they know where to turn.
Sure. So providing those resources. One final question for you guys. What if, the student came to you and you were thinking about possibly making some of those due dates flexible for them? What would you think about doing that for that particular student? Because I know they mentioned, that the student turned in an assignment a couple weeks late or a week late. So would you think about making some of your due dates flexible for them? Thoughts? Oh, hand somewhere? No? Oh, way in the back. Gentleman right here in the blue shirt.
Oh.
I would first get permission from supervisor or your advisor, and if they said go for it, I don't see why not. As well as if it's an important paper, probably not.
Okay, thank you. And one final thought over here before we wrap it up and go to our last one.
Oh, I just think if it's, a psychological issue is a medical issue, so it's just like if they were sick and they need an extension for that, I would say it's a reasonable excuse.
Yes, thank you. And with that, just, I think it's important to note that documentation is extremely important. So if they were coming to you with that issue, make sure you have something from psychological services or the counseling center stating that, the student is a client from them. Of course, that would have to be disclosed by the student, but, be careful with that because some students might come and they're not really experiencing those things. All right, well, thank you so much. Do not forget about those resources, Counseling Center, Psychological Services, Women's Center, and also the Psychological Clinic. And we're going to turn it over to Julian for our last scenario.
Hi everyone. So our last scenario is going to be about religious concerns. And I don't want to take away from your lunchtime because we're supposed to be done at 12, so I'll try to keep this quick. All right, so first we'll watch the video and then you'll discuss and then I'll ask you what would you not do, and then what would you do?
You are a teaching assistant who has inherited a class with a rigid schedule and strict policies. You just informed your class of their midterm grades when you are approached by a disgruntled student who wants you to change the class attendance policy for religious reasons.
I am very frustrated that you have absolutely no consideration for religious obligations that limit a student's availability for attending class. The only class sessions I missed were those held on high holy holidays. I already suffered by missing important lectures held in my absence. Why should I be punished further by having attendance points deducted? This is discrimination. I am asking that you consider my situation and reconsider the class attendance policy. If you don't count the holy days I missed, you would see that I have perfect attendance.
All right. So let's take 2 minutes to just talk within your table, and then we'll just talk about it together. All right, everyone. Sorry to cut this short. But again, this is for your own good so that you have more time to eat. All right, so who would like to share first?
Hello, everyone. So at our table, we decided that what we would not do is that we would not dock the person for absence, but we would allow it to be an excused absence for religious beliefs, and then just carry on, maybe not change the whole structure of the class, but be excused for these particular obligations.
Okay, so you would excuse it. Okay. Let's see, who else? What would you not do? Yeah. Or were you just like fixing your hair? Sorry.
If it was for a situation that was, the video said it was like later in the semester and they had a holy day that maybe fell on a day for an exam or something that had been in the syllabus with a dated specific time on it, especially a final exam, we can't change that for you. And you came to us maybe later in the semester instead of the first couple days when we could have worked it out, talked to your superior. Like, your superior is there to help you out and to protect you in situations like this. And the student coming to you as a TA, you can meet with your superior and say, hey, our original professor made this syllabus at the beginning of the semester. We gave you this schedule. Honestly, if it's that late, we can't help you out, especially for exam days when it was already written down. It's something that big.
Okay, so you would say, I'm not going to change it because it's late, but not because it's a religious excuse, right?
Yeah, like if it's later, if it's one of the midterm exams, or if it's like a final exam that they want us to push for just for them. I've always had syllabuses that have chapters written out exactly what days and what exams are on what days. So we can work that out if you come to us as soon as possible, because I'm not going to say no just because you have a religious conflict. That's something that I personally have experience with, being able to do something like that. And we can definitely work it out if you come to us as soon as possible.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, we decided here, one thing we would not do is make a decision before looking at Kent State's policy.
Yeah.
Making a case for discrimination, the bar is kind of high. You have to be able to prove that your situation is being singled out, whereas a policy that sets a schedule and it applies to all religions and all creeds equally, it's tougher to make a case of discrimination. So we would consult policy before we would do anything.
Right, so that's a very, very, very good point. The university has a policy regarding religious excuses. Yep.
All right, great. I'll echo what was said earlier about if the student comes early on, and says, oh, I'll have to miss XYZ day because of religious holidays, things of that nature, then yeah, absolutely, you can work around that. I would say it's our burden to, write a proper syllabi and make sure that's there. I think it'd be a good idea to include like a note in your syllabi. If any of this is a problem, come to me. Don't just leave it up to the students to know that you are open to these sort of negotiations, like explicitly mention on the first day in the syllabi. You can't do that in the scenario we got because we inherited the class, evidently. But in general, I think that could go a long way towards preventing those situations.
Right, but even if you inherit the class, that class is still subject to university policy, right? So that was a very good point that you mentioned earlier, that it doesn't matter which issue you're facing. If you're not sure about the university policy, it's completely okay to say, hey, I don't have an answer for you right now. Give me 24 hours. I'm gonna look it up either on the website, check with the supervisor, check with people in your department, and it's okay to take time to actually make sure that you are acting in accordance with university policy. Yeah, you wanted to add something? What is the policy then? Okay, well the policy is that Kent State University welcomes all religions, and all religions are, how would I put that? I mean, it's okay for any religions to have their own days and for you to use that as an excused absence. The thing is though, in this scenario, the student comes to you after midterms and says, well, this is my religion. Usually, if you are Muslim, if you are Christian, or any other religion, you know that at the beginning of the semester, usually. And usually what I do is the first day, I go over the syllabus. It's a little boring, but the very first day for me is syllabus day. And I go through all the rules and all the university policies, and because I wanted all the students to understand all this, and we go through the policies regarding student accessibility services, religions, and all that, so that the students can then give you all their information, that are pertinent to their schedule. So if they come to you early on in the semester, it's totally fine. Whatever religion they have, they're allowed to use this as an excused absence. And then you can work it out with them, It doesn't mean that, I can't come that day, so I'm gonna get full credit for not coming, right? No, they're still gonna have to make it up somehow. So you can work it out with them. But if they come to you later in the semester, you can say, are you sure that this is your religion? Because you were also, Christian at the beginning of the semester, or Jewish, how come you didn't tell me? So the university is very welcoming. They just, students just have to let you know in advance. Do we have any other thoughts or comments? And then we're gonna have lunch. Anyone? No, I just said the magic word, right? I said lunch, so everyone's gonna keep quiet.
Lunch,
okay.
lunch.
Well, thank you everyone, and I'm gonna pass the mic over to my friend Danielle.
Okay, guys, before you start moving around and everything, we do have a couple of announcements. Thank you for your attention and engagement in that session. We are continuing in these conversations in a breakout session after lunch, and that'll be with Anuj, Tanisha, and myself. So if you'd like to join us there, you're more than welcome. Also, in lieu of printing massive amounts of resource packets, we've decided to just make it available to everyone, and you can go to this link right here, Complex Conversations on the GSO site, and you can access all of the scenarios, the scripts, and then what to do, what not to do, and then your resources are all listed out there. Okay, so I'm going to pass it off to Kristen. Thanks so much.